Hey folks, it's Stephan here. Welcome back to another Pathfinder adventure card game, Wrath of the Righteous episode. This week it's tracking down Templars. You've returned your charges to the surface. You should reunite them with their loved ones, but the city is in ruins. Cultists of Baphomet swarm the devastated areas. Should the pitborn witch Faxon reach Eagle Watch's leaders, he could crush the resistance. You must stand in his path. And there are cohorts, and I forgot to assign those, so let me pull those out. We've got Eneva, Ravashnal, Horgus, and Irabeth. I don't know how it works when we've got 4 of them. I'm just going to put Horgus back. I think probably, since we only have 3 characters, we should only have 3 of them. I'll give this one to Seelah, this one will go to Imrijka, and this one will go to Enora. Need to draw the opening hands as well. Opening hands are done, so back to the scenario. The villain is Faxon, the henchmen are Vogorg and Cultists of Baphomet. During this scenario, when you permanently close a location, you may bury a cohort that has the Mendevian trait to choose a type of boon other than loot and draw a random, non-basic card of that type from the box. And I think they all have Mendevian, probably. They do. For locations, we have Defender's Heart. When you attempt a check to defeat a Bane, you may recharge any number of allies. For each ally recharged, add 1d4. Laboratory. When you would banish an item for its power, bury it instead. Tower of Estrad. At the end of your turn, you may recharge a card that has the corrupted trait from your discard pile. Occult Library. When you play a card that has the book trait, banish it. And the Cemetery. All non-villain monsters gain the undead trait and are immune to mental and poison traits. We're going to send Enora to the laboratory. Imrijka will go to Defender's Heart. And Seelah will go to the Tower of Estrad. And Enora explores first and encounters Detect Demon, which is a spell, Wisdom Divine 4. Well, she has a d6 for Wisdom, so we'll give that a shot. And she gets a 5, so she does acquire Detect Demon. And we're back to the iPad for dice rolling. Everyone seems to prefer that, so we'll go back to that. Problem is that everyone would actually have one more card because they didn't start with those cohorts. And now the cohort contributes to them having multiple cards. So Enora would have had Chuffy Lickwound, so she can discard him to explore again. But she's now 2 cards up because she just gained something. So she'll explore again with Chuffy Lickwound, and she finds a Blessing of Ascension. Charisma 6 or Divine 5. Well, she has a d8 for Charisma. And she gets a 4, so she did not acquire the Blessing of Ascension. And now she doesn't really have a way to explore again. She's going to have to ditch something. 2 somethings, I think, actually. So we'll get rid of Detect Demon, which we just picked up, because we don't really care about that. Oh, that's 6 cards. Okay, no, that's fine. Passing play then to Imrijka. She'll explore, and she finds a Ghost. Combat 12 or a Wisdom Divine 8. The Ghost is immune to mental and poison. If the check to defeat does not have the magic trait, the Ghost is undefeated. Which might be an issue because we don't have an item, a weapon with magic on it, do we? We have the hand crossbow. Eneva does not help us here. Blessing does not help us. So we're going to have to fight it, but we're not going to defeat it, I guess. So it would be combat 12. Hand crossbow. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d6. If you are proficient with weapons, you may additionally recharge another weapon that has the range trait to add 1d8. Well, we've only got 1 weapon at the moment. So that's going to be a d10 plus 2. Plus a d6, and she'll spend a blessing. So we're going to make it 2d10 plus 2 plus a d6. And big rolls there. So we do defeat this, but since we don't have the magic trait, it's undefeated, which means it will then go back into the deck. And since it counted as undefeated, we cannot use her ability to explore again. But she is now down to 5 cards, which is fine, so we're going to pass play to Seelah. And she's at the Tower of Estrad. She explores and finds Rift Warden, which is an ally. Check to acquire Intelligence Knowledge 7 or Diplomacy 10. Well, the Diplomacy check would be the one to go for, since that is a d10 plus 2 for her. And we have an item with a corrupted trait, Blessing of Abraxas, which would give us a die to any check. And because of the way this is worded, we could then recharge that. So I think we'll do that. We'll spend the Blessing of Abraxas. We'll do 2d10 plus 2 to get a 10. 2d10 plus 2 to get a 10. And, of course, we get brilliant rolls, so we only get a 5, which means we do not get the Rift Warden. But we can use the effect of the Tower of Estrad. At the end of your turn, you may recharge a card that has the corrupted trait from your discard pile. And she's now at a hand size of 4. So pass play to Enora. And she explores and finds Brilliance, Intelligence, Arcane, Wisdom, Divine 6. Well, we can use her knowledge check for this, so it's a d12 plus 4. And we get a 5, which would be 9, so we do acquire Brilliance. Well, she does not have a way to explore again, so she's going to discard Brilliance. And pass play to Imrijka, who explores and finds a Crocodile. Combat 13. If the check to defeat has the cold trait, add 1d6. If undefeated this card, and this card came from a location deck, shuffle this card into a random open location deck. Alright, so we do have our hand crossbow, so that would be a d10 and a d6 plus 2 as a base. And then we're going to use Eneva Tirablade. She's going to give us another d6 for a ranged check. And he is a 13, so Seelah is going to give us a blessing. So we're going to be rolling 2d10 and 2d6 plus 2. We got a 10 on one of those, so that was good. And we do defeat the crocodile. She can take her d6 to see if we explore again, and we get a 5, so we do. And it is Quadnus Orlan, who is a human wizard. Arcane, Divine, Charisma, Diplomacy 6. So, Arcane, Divine, well, our Divine is our best chance here. We could do a d8 plus 1 for that to get a 6. And we get an 8, so we do acquire him. And he says, recharge this card to succeed at your check to acquire or recharge a card that has the Arcane trait. Discard this card to explore a location. During this exploration, add 1d6 to your non-combat Arcane or Knowledge checks. So it's actually probably a pretty good card for Enora. We're going to use him right now, though, to explore again. And if we have any non-combat Arcane or Knowledge checks, we have to remember to add a d6 to that. And we find a wooden shield, Constitution Fortitude 4. That's just a d6 for us. And we do acquire the shield. Now she doesn't have a way to explore again, so she'll pass play to Seelah, who encounters a monkey's paw. Object Gambling Corrupted. Check below. You may use any skill in your check to acquire this item. Roll 1d10 to determine the difficulty of the check. If you fail to acquire the card and it has the corrupted trait, bury a card. Shuffle this card into your deck and add 1d20 to your check. The difficulty of the check is increased by 1d20. If you fail the check, banish this card. Doesn't sound stellar to me, but okay. So we got to roll a 1d20 to see how difficult this is to acquire. And we have a d20 here. And it's only a 5. So it's a 5, and we can use any check. We're going to use Diplomacy, which is a d10 plus 2 to get a 5. And we do acquire the monkey's paw. Now, this is Seelah, and this says, when you acquire a boon that has the corrupted trait, bury it. So this gets buried immediately. And she will reset her hand back up to 4 cards and pass play to Enora, who explores again and finds Periton, an aberration, combat 14. If the check to defeat has the Arcane or Divine trait, the difficulty is increased by 3. Well, that's unfortunate, because we would have the Arcane trait on our spells. So he's actually a 17. If undefeated, the damage dealt by Periton is increased by 3. He's very bad. We have Fiery Glare, and we have Aravashanal, so he can help, and Seelah has a blessing, so that's what we'll do. Fiery Glare, we're going to recharge Aravashanal to get another d6. So now we are rolling a d12 and a d6 plus 2d4 plus 2. And then we're going to get a blessing, so now we're going to be rolling 2d12 instead. So 2d12, a d6, 2d4 plus 2. And we got a 12 on one of those, so that's really good. We got a 1 on the d6, which is not as good. But overall, we get a 26. So we do defeat Periton, which is good. Okay, so our Aravashanal was recharged. Now we need to see if we can... Oh, well, we would get a spell back, actually. We've got 2 spells here, so we'll draw one randomly for casting a spell. And now we need to make an Arcane 10, which is going to be a d12 plus 2 for us. And we had a 5, so that's a 7, so we did not recharge Fiery Glare. But that's okay. She does not have a way to explore again, so she will reset her hand up to 6 cards. Play goes to Imrijka. She's still here at Defender's Heart. And she encounters a Constrictor Snake, Combat 11. The check has the cold trait, add 1d6. If undefeated, bury the top card of your deck and return the Constrictor Snake to the top of its location deck. We're going to use our hand crossbow. So it's going to be a d10 and a d6 plus 2. Yeah, Imrijka will give us a blessing of Baphomet. Add 2 dice to any check attempted during the first exploration of a turn. This is her first exploration. So now it'll be 3d10 and a d6 plus 2. And we get 16 total, so Constrictor Snake goes away. And that does not leave her with a way to explore again, so she's going to have to pass play to Seelah, who encounters a Blessing of Ascension, Charisma 6 or Divine 5. Well, we'll go with Charisma, that's a d10 plus 1 for her. And she gets an 8, so she does acquire the Blessing of Ascension, which she will use to explore again. And encounters a Cultist of Baphomet. Check to defeat, combat 10. The difficulty of checks to defeat Cultists of Baphomet is increased by the scenario's adventure deck number, so she's an 11. Before you act, if this is your first exploration, the Cultists of Baphomet deals 1 combat damage to you. Well, it is our first exploration, but we have the Eagle Knight dress uniform. Recharge this card to reduce combat damage dealt to you by 1. We'll just recharge that to get rid of that 1 damage. So she's a combat 11. And we have a longsword. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your strength or melee skill plus 1d8. You may additionally discard this card to add another 1d6. Well, that would be a d8. That would be 2d8 plus 3 right now. Unfortunately, we don't have another item to do this with, so we can't use Irabeth's ability. So we could either discard this, or we can stick with the 2d8 plus 3 to get an 11, and Imrijka could give us a blessing. Yeah, Imrijka will give us a blessing. Well, what's the closing cost first? Summon and defeat a henchman Cultists of Baphomet. Of course it is. So we're going to have to fight another one anyway. So I guess right now, then, we're just going to stick with 2d8 plus 3. Because we're going to have to fight another one if we beat this one. So that worked out. We got a 15. So we defeat the Cultists of Baphomet. But now we have to, in order to try to close this location, we have to summon and defeat a Cultist of Baphomet. So we'll do that. Hello, Cultist of Baphomet. Before you act, if this is your first exploration, deals 1 combat damage to you. I don't know if that counts with a summoned one, but we'll say that it does, and we're going to have to ditch Irabeth as a result. Okay, so now, 2d8 plus 3. This time Enora will give us a blessing, so it's going to be 3d8 plus 3. And it's looking good. So we've got a 22 total, which means we do defeat the Cultists of Baphomet. And this location now is closed. On closing, draw a random spell from the box, which Seelah cannot use, but let's see what we get. Create Pit. Well, actually, that's not bad. She could use that one, at least until the end of this scenario. Now, when you permanently close a location, you may bury a cohort that has the Mendevian trait to choose a type of boon other than... Well, unfortunately, we already had to get rid of our cohort. And she's going to reset her hand back up to 4 cards, and she gets the loot reward from last time, Radiance, which is her new, really good weapon. Play goes to Enora, and she encounters Archer's Bracers, Dexterity range 7. She has a Dexterity of D6, which means she is not going to acquire this, and we're not going to spend anything to acquire it. So that goes back to the box. She might as well reset because she's a bit down on cards at the moment anyway. And pass play over to Imrijka, who finds a sickle, strength melee 5. That would be a d10 plus 1 for her. And she gets a 3, which means she got a 4, which means she does not acquire that. Doesn't have a way to explore again, unfortunately, so during her reset, she's actually going to dump this card. And she gets a glaive plus 1, so that'll be good. Over to Seelah, who now needs to move. She could either go to the Occult Library, which she would not be able to close, or she could go to the Cemetery. Okay, Cemetery is a better choice for her. All non-villain monsters gain the Undead trait and are immune to mental and poison traits. And it's the villain. Okay, Faxon. Check to defeat combat 12. When you encounter Faxon, each character recharges all cards that have the healing trait. Okay, well, Imrijka has the healing trait. While you act, before any character plays a card, that character recharges a card. Okay. Well, First we have to do the temporary checks over here for the 2 locations where we're at. So this says for Imrijka, summon and acquire a random ally. He's got one place that he can escape no matter what, but let's see if we can limit the options. Fortune Teller, Charisma Diplomacy 11. Boy, that's tough. Tough for her. She's only got a d6. Scale of Disguise, though. Recharge this card to add 1 to your non-combat check or 2 to your non-combat Charisma, Diplomacy, or Stealth check. Well, this is definitely a non-combat check. So we are going to recharge that. So now she'll be rolling 3d6 to get an 11, which is still not very good. But we did it. Okay, so we acquired the Fortune Teller for Imrijka, and this location is temporarily closed. Over to the Laboratory, succeed in Intelligence 7 or Craft 5 check for Enora. She actually does have Craft, and that's the easier check for her to make, so it would be a d12 plus 2. Of course, we got a 2, so that's a 4, which means we did not make this check, and he could escape here, unfortunately. Probably should have used that Blessing. Or Brilliance or something. We should have done something better. But we didn't, so too bad. Back to Faxon. Combat 12. Before you act, while you act, before any character plays a card, that character recharges the card. Before, okay. Well, I'm going to recharge Create Pit. And then we're going to use Radiance. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your Strength or Melee plus 1d8. You may additionally discard this card to add another 1d6 and the scenario's adventure deck number. If you have the Paladin trait, add an additional 1d4 plus 1. And we do have the Paladin trait. So we now will be rolling 2d8 and a d4 plus 4. And Enora is going to give us a blessing. So we're actually going to be rolling 3d8 plus the d4 plus 4. And we get 24. So that is enough to defeat him, which means that this location closes automatically. There's no effect when closed. And he can escape to one of these 2 locations. And so we add a blessing from the box, we put him in here, we shuffle those together, and we put 1 into each location that he can go to. Shuffle those, and we will reset Seelah's hand back up to 4 cards and pass play to Enora. Pretty nice to be able to close a location without even having to go through it at all. The villain may have ended up here where Enora is, so it's a bit risky. She doesn't have any offensive spells other than Create Pit. And discard this card to evade a monster you encounter whose highest difficulty to defeat is 12 or lower. He was at 12, so I guess she is safe with Create Pit. So we'll take a crack at it, exploring here, and see what happens. And we encounter a zombie. Combat 9. He's immune to mental and poison. Halve the damage dealt by zombie round up. If undefeated, each other character at this location summons and encounters a zombie. Well, we have the Sacred Prism. Bury this card to defeat a Bane that has the Outsider or Undead trait, whose highest difficulty to defeat is 12 or lower. And that certainly will cover that guy. So we're just going to bury this Sacred Prism, get rid of that zombie. So I'm going to use Brilliance. Display this card next to a character. While displayed, add 3 to the character's intelligence checks. So now we get one of these 2 back. We'll hope that it's Fiery Glare, but it could just be another Brilliance. We won't know until we flip it here. Okay, it was Fiery Glare that we got back. And now we would have to succeed in an Arcane 8 check, but we're going to be adding 3 to our intelligence to do that. So that is a d12 plus 5 now to get an 8. A d12 plus 5 to get an 8. And we get a 10, so we do recharge Brilliance. And now we'll reset her hand to 6 cards and hope that she gets a spell. She did get one, Frigid Blast, okay. That will be the end of Enora's turn. We'll go to Imrijka. Now, nothing here, no villain here. So we just need to find the henchman and then close this location down. Oh, and there's our friend the Ghost. But this time we have a weapon with the magic trait, so we're all set. Combat 12. We've got our Glaive plus 1, which has the magic trait on it. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your Strength or Melee skill plus 1d10 plus 1. So that will be 2d10 plus 2. And we did not get it, did we? Nope, we got an 11. We're just one short of killing the ghost. I knew I should have used a blessing on this. So we're going to take 1 point of damage. It doesn't say his damage is anything particular, so we'll say that it's combat damage. We'll recharge our scale mail. He goes back into the deck. We're going to use the fortune teller to explore again. And this time we find the researcher. Check to acquire intelligence, knowledge 7 or charisma diplomacy 6. Just a d6 for charisma diplomacy here. And we get a 4, so we do not acquire the researcher. And now we're going to have to reset. Over to Seelah, who needs to move. So she could either go to the occult library, where he may be, or the laboratory, or she could come here to Defender's Heart and help Imrijka potentially close this. I think that's what we'll do. Get this shut down. Finds an animal tamer. Wisdom, survival, charisma, diplomacy 9. So that would be a d10 plus 2 for her to get that. She gets a 4, so we do not acquire that guy. She could explore again with her blessing, and it is a record demon. Outsider demon, combat 14. He is immune to electricity and poison. If undefeated, bury a non-basic item or banish an item. Okay, well, we've got radiance. So we're going to use our strength to melee plus 1d8 and then an additional 1d4 plus 1. So that would be 2d8 plus a d4 plus 5. Enora is going to give us a blessing of Abraxas for that fight. So now 3d8 plus a d4 plus 5. And we got it easily. The record demon is defeated. Does not have a way to explore again though, so she'll reset past play to Enora. And she will take another crack at this, and she finds a Blessing of Ascension, Charisma 6 or Divine 5. She has a d8 for Charisma. Gets a 1, so she does not acquire the blessing. She does have a Demon Hunter. She could explore. Discard your card to explore this location. During your exploration, add 1d6 to your checks against Banes that have the Demon trait. So if Faxon is here, that would be helpful. And we find Cultists of Baphomet, which does not have the Demon trait. This is not our first exploration, though, so we don't have to take that 1 combat damage. So we're facing a combat 11. It's not immune to anything, so we're going to use Frigid Blast, Arcane or Divine plus 2d4. So that would be a d12 and 2d4 plus 2. Imrijka is going to give us a blessing, making that 2d12 plus 2d4 plus 2. And we've got it already. More than enough to defeat the Cultists of Baphomet. We may now attempt to close this location. First, let's pull a spell out of here for casting a spell. I think there's only one in our discard pile, but we'll just check. Alright, so we definitely get this one back. And the check to recharge this is an Arcane 6, so it's going to be a d12 plus 2. And we get an 11, so we do recharge that. Closing this, succeed in Intelligence or Craft 5. Again, Craft is still our better check. It's a d12 plus 2. There are no blessings on the table, so it's what we've got. d12 plus 2, not a 1. That's not what we needed. Okay, well, we again don't close this location, unfortunately. We'll reset her hand. Gets a good spell there with Life Drain and Fiery Glare. And also Force Missile. So she's loaded up. Over to Imrijka. I'll try once more to close this, and finally finds the Cultist of Baphomet, combat 10. This is her first exploration though, so it's going to be doing 1 point of damage to us, which we're going to take on the hand crossbow. I'd like to keep the ally in hand, because we can use that with this. So it's going to be glaive plus 1, so 2d10 plus 2, and then we're going to add a d4 from having recharged our ally guy. And nobody can help, so that is it to get an 11. 2d10 plus a d4 plus 2. And we get a 1 there, but we get a 14 total, so we do defeat the Cultists of Baphomet. And the closing cost is summon and acquire a random ally. And we find a Vulture. Wisdom Survival 5. Well, that's actually not bad for us, because our Wisdom is a d8. It's better than our Charisma. But nothing can help us, so it's just a straight d8 to get a 5. And we get a 4, so we do not acquire the Vulture, and we do not close the location. We know that there's a ghost there. She's going to reset her hand. Pass play over to Seelah, so it's going to be up to Seelah to close this location now. We know it's the ghost, combat 12 or wisdom divine 8. We're going to use radiance because it does have the magic trait on it. So 2d8 and a d4 plus 5 to get a 12. Well, that gets us 15. So we do defeat the ghost. And now we have to summon and acquire a random ally. And it's a Wolverine, Wisdom Survival 8. Well, we have a d8 for Wisdom. And Imrijka's going to give us a blessing, so it's going to be 2d8 now to get a... what was it? An 8. 2d8 to get an 8, we get a 14, so we do acquire the Wolverine. And now this location will be closed for the rest of your scenario. Add 1 to your checks to acquire allies by characters at any location. That puts her over her hand size. So we will discard the scale mail and pass play to Enora, who is still here. Faxon could still be here, we don't know. So we'll explore and see what we find, and it is a potion of night vision, intelligence, craft 5. Well, a d12 plus 2 for her to get that. And this time she does acquire the craft, so we get this. Banish this card and choose a character at your location. That character may examine the top 3 cards of the location deck, then shuffle it. Alright, well, let's go ahead and use it. We'll find out what they are. Okay, so Faxon is not here. He's not here. We're going to shuffle this. This is just 2 allies. Unfortunately, we do not have a way to look at those, though. So we're going to have to pass play over to Imrijka. She's going to need to move over to the Occult Library and explore. Finding Nectar of the Gods. Check to acquire Wisdom Divine 9. She has a d8 plus 1 for that, so she could acquire it. It's just very unlikely. It does not. Can't explore again either, so she resets. She's got a decent hand now, but we're getting quite low in the Blessings deck. Seelah is going to move over with Imrijka and start going through this location and finds a giant cockroach. Before you act, another character at your location summons and encounters a giant cockroach. Well, that means Imrijka, just a combat 8. If the check to defeat has the bludgeoning trait, add a d8. Well, we don't. Sad to say, but we don't. But we do have a heavy crossbow, and I think we're going to use that heavy crossbow. So it will be 2d10 plus 2 to get an 8. And we definitely got that guy. So he's crushed. Now it's Seelah's fight, so she's going to use Radiance. It's going to be 2d8 and a d4 plus 5 to get an 8. Oh my. Luckily it's plus 5, so we got 12 total, and the giant cockroach is defeated. Now that was Seelah's exploration. She can use the Wolverine. Discard this card to explore your location. During this exploration, add a d6 to your stealth checks. And finds Glibness. Intelligence, Arcane, Divine, Wisdom Divine 6. d8 plus 1 for her to get that. Gets a 3, so that spell is not acquired. And now she doesn't have a way to explore, so she will reset and pass play to Enora, who is going to try to close this location out. Find Grizzled Mercenary, Charisma Diplomacy 6. We don't have anything to help us with this, so it's just going to be a d8 to get a 6. Oh, d8 plus 1 actually to get a 6 because of this effect. For the rest of the scenario, add 1 to the check to acquire allies by characters at any location, and we rolled a 5, which means we did acquire the Grizzled Mercenary, which we're going to then discard to explore again, find a frog, and he is a Wisdom Survival 6, so it's a d6 plus 1 for her. This time we only get a 1, so we don't acquire the frog, but that does leave the location empty, and now we can succeed in Intelligence 7 or Craft 5 to close this. So a d12 plus 2 to close. And this time we get a 7, so we do close the laboratory. On closing, draw a random item from the box. And we get Trapsmith Gloves. This location is now closed, and she is over her hand size, so we're going to actually get rid of those Trapsmith Gloves. Pass play to Imrijka. She explores and finds Viper Strike, Intelligence, Arcane, Wisdom Divine 4. That is a d8 plus 1 for her. Gets a 2, so no, we don't acquire the Viper Strike. Does not have a way to explore again either. Well, we really haven't had too many ways to explore again. We've been using blessings for fights. And speaking of that, we don't actually have a blessing going into any fight at the moment. But goes over to Seelah. She explores and finds Vagorg, who is the henchman for this location, combat 8. Before you act, Vagorg deals 2 force damage to you. Banish this card to reduce all damage dealt to you by 0 if proficient with heavy armors. Bury it instead. Okay, we'll bury this. That gets rid of the force damage. If undefeated, shuffle a random monster from the box into Vagorg's location. Search your cards for a cohort that has the Mendavian trait and banish it. Well, alright, so he is a combat 8. So we're going to use Radiance. That'll be 2d8 plus a d4 plus 5. And we're going to use this, recharge this card to add 1 to your combat check. Or 2 if you played a weapon. So now it's going to be plus 7. 2d8 and a d4 plus 7. For a total of 18. So we do defeat Vagorg, which means we would have an attempt to close this location, which would be quite difficult for her to do though. Succeed at an intelligence or knowledge 6 check. She does not have knowledge and her intelligence is a d4. So actually fighting that guy didn't help us at all that much, did it? Well, she can't close it. So even though we know the villain's here, we can't bring him to the top. Unfortunate. Doesn't have a way to explore again, so we've got to pass play over to Enora, who's going to join the party. Only 5 blessings left, so we definitely need to start getting through this deck. We've still got 6 cards in here. We find Mendavian Crusader, Divine 9 or Charisma Diplomacy 6. Well, it's a d8 for her to get a 6. Well, actually it's a d8 plus 1 because of the effect of the other location. So not too bad, we get a 5, which means we do acquire the Mendavian Crusader. And we're going to discard him to explore again, and that's going to add 1 to our combat checks. And Quarterstaff of Vaulting, Strength Melee 9 or Acrobatics 6. She cannot acquire that one. That would be the end of her turn. Over to Imrijka. Another Record Demon, Combat 14. Is immune to electricity and poison. Alright, this time we're going to use the hand crossbow. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d6. If proficient with weapons, you may additionally recharge another weapon that has the range trait to add 1d8. So we're going to recharge our corrosive dagger plus 1. So now we will be rolling a d10, a d8, and a d6 plus 2. A d10, a d8, and a d6 plus 2. Okay, we got 15, which is just enough. So he's gone. It's Imrijka, so she can roll a d6 to see if she explores again. She gets a 3, though, so she does not. She resets her hand. Gets a blessing on the table, finally. That's good. Over to Seelah. And good, it's Faxon. Check to defeat combat 12. When you encounter Faxon, each character recharges all the cards that have the healing trait. Oh, actually this one might. Yep. While you act before any character plays a card, that character recharges the card. Okay. So, Seelah is going to use a weapon. So she's going to have to recharge the long spear. She recharges this, which allows her to use Radiance. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your Strength Melee skill plus 1d8. You may additionally discard this card, etc., etc. So she's going to be doing that. If you fail a check against a monster that has the demon trait, discard this card to reroll the dice. Okay, does he have the demon trait? He does. Alright, so that's good. And Imrijka's going to give us a blessing for this check, so she has to recharge something. She'll recharge the Silver Raven. And now she can use the blessing. So now we're rolling 3d8 and a d4 plus 5. 3d8 and a d4 plus 5. Which is a total of 21, which is Faxon defeated by Seelah. Very nice job. And that is the end of tracking down Templars, and the loot is a scale of your choice. And there's only one scale left, and that is the scale of Cloud Walking. At the end of your turn, recharge this card to move. It's probably the least interesting one, which is why it's still remaining. But good job there. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Pathfinder adventure card game Wrath of the Righteous. I will be back next time with the Wardstone Legacy, and that will be the final adventure in Adventure 1, or final scenario in Adventure 1. And we'll get our Mythic Path after that, and then a card feat. So that'll be cool, and I need to get scanning to get Adventure Deck 2 into the system. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you know when I'm publishing videos in the future. And I will talk to you next time.